How hot will it get this week? How long will the heat wave last? And where's next across the Mediterranean to see torrential downpours and thunderstorms? We'll try and answer all of those questions in this week's Met Office Deep Dive. Welcome along. Thank you for joining me. My name's Alex Deakin and the Met Office Deep Dive is exclusive to YouTube. So make sure you've hit subscribe if you haven't done already. This is the only place that you will see the Met Office Deep Dive. 20 minutes or so of what's going on with the weather, what has gone on, what's going to happen over the next few days. We'll delve into the meteorological minutiae. We love reading your comments, so please do keep them coming in. We read them all, whether they're critiques, whether they're suggestions of things that we can cover. We do read them. So thank you for those. Do hit the like button as well, and do please share the love. If you know another Met head who might enjoy these, then let them know that we're doing these and they can join in with the fun as well. Okay, plenty going on behind me, plenty to get through in this week's deep dive. We'll get on to the UK heat in just a moment, but we'll start further south with this little swirl of cloud across Iberia, a clutch of thunderstorms, an area of low pressure that really developed at the back end of last week and brought torrential downpours to parts of Spain and Portugal over the course of the weekend. See that little swirl there? It's still an area of low pressure and it's still in part affecting our weather, but sitting down to the southwest. That's the satellite image, but let's take a look at the lightning strikes that we saw from that system. So these are the lightning strikes over the past 5 days or so. Not a lot going on Thursday, Friday, but if we just fast forward, well, we can see there and zoom in across Spain, all those lightning strikes that happened over the course of Friday night and into Saturday and then kept going during Saturday, clutch of them heading up across the Balearics there, more across the mainland of Spain and Portugal. Another huge storm there, drifting northwards from Algeria and got up towards Mallorca. I said caused flooding across Spain through the course of the weekend with those torrential downpours. Let's just pause it there as we bring it back to the start of this week. Zoom out a little bit, because now the activity has eased over Spain and Portugal, but it's starting to liven up at the other end of the Mediterranean. This is Italy here, and here we've got Greece. And if we just play through what's happened over the past 24 hours or so, you can see the thunderstorms have really started to develop here. And that is where we're going to see torrential rain already at the time of recording Tuesday afternoon, seeing some very heavy rain across Greece, and it's likely to get worse. Look at these thunderstorms, batches of storms intensifying over the past 24 hours or so, and there is more wet weather to come across Greece for sure over the next couple of days. Satellite image kind of tells the story. There's that storm here. But what happened over the course of the weekend, we saw a trough driving south, and that helped to develop an area of low pressure in the Mediterranean. It's now sitting here and just spiraling around. Let's zoom in on that because you can see that spiral really nicely here. It's a low pressure system in the Mediterranean, but it's actually called a medicane because it's not just a typical area of low pressure that we get across Europe, that we see in the UK, that has a cool core. This has signs of a warm core, a bit like a tropical cyclone or a hurricane. And when they happen in the Mediterranean, they only happen at certain times of the year. September's the start of the season, ends January, you can get them, but it's mostly through the autumn months when the sea is at its warmest. You get these storms with hurricane-like characteristics, and they're called medicanes. And this one in here is going to drop a lot of rain across Greece and into parts of Libya. So you can see it there. So it's a warmed core. Why has it got a warmed core? Well, because it's being heated from below, because the Mediterranean is so very warm. Let's take a look at the sea surface temperatures. These are the anomalies of the sea surface temperatures in the Mediterranean. It takes you a couple of seconds, doesn't it, to get your eyes around this map, but the grey is the land mass. So you can see the UK up there, top left of the screen. And you can see that the sea surface temperatures around the UK are actually above average. So this is an anomaly. So it's not relative. So although they're the same reds around the UK as the Mediterranean, the sea is much cooler around the UK, but it's an anomaly compared to the average. So it's red because it's above average around the UK, but also in here, this is the crucial area we're looking at. There's Greece, there's Libya, and the temperatures in and around here and just north of Egypt are a bit above average, and it's been above average for much of the summer actually. It's actually slightly cooler now around Italy, but it's warmer at this end of the Mediterranean. Sea surface temperatures 26, 27, off the Libyan coast 28 degrees Celsius. So it's that really warm sea that is fueling that Medicane in the eastern Mediterranean. And what we're going to see is that low pressure continue to bring some heavy rain here. Just going to pause it there and show you this pattern at the moment, because this is back to the jet stream, the here and now. You see that curve of the jet stream up there with that low that brought the rain across Spain, the low that's bringing the rain across Greece, and that is called an omega block because it's shaped like the Greek letter omega. And when the weather's in this kind of pattern, the weather doesn't shift too far, which is why we're seeing an area of high pressure. More on that in a second. Let's just bring you back to the rainfall across this low, because it's developed now, it's got that warm core, and it's not really moving very far very quickly. If we put the rain on, zoom in a little bit, look at that low. Yeah, it's bringing some heavy rain to parts of southern Italy, but with the low going like this, the winds are coming in this direction. So it's this eastern side of Greece that's going to see very heavy rain overnight for much of tomorrow, because it's very slow moving now. Notice the jet stream isn't pushing it anywhere, so it's just going to mill around, fueled by those warm seas, generating the moisture, generating the outbreaks of rain. Now, when you've got a warmed core system like this, it can generate some very strong winds as well. It's similar to hurricane strength in the worst case scenario. And it looks like, again, that eastern side of Greece will see some of the heaviest rainfall and the strongest winds. The brighter colours in there, some of the hills here could easily see a few 100 millimetres of rain. Quite widely, we're expecting 100 to 150 millimetres of rain across parts of eastern Greece, but we could see 400 to 500 millimetres of rain. The average for September in this part of the world is somewhere between 50 and 100 millimetres. So we're easily going to see double a month's worth in a few days, and some locations could see as much as 4, 5, 6 times their monthly average. And it's not just Greece, because this low is going to head down to Libya and bring some very heavy rain here over the next few days, where it continues to just spiral around. Now, this is a pretty dry part of the world, as you might imagine. The north coast of Libya, average in September, less than 10 millimetres of rain. So that is going to bring exceptional rainfall to parts of northern Libya as well. So this will be a developing story, likely to cause some flooding issues. There are red warnings out from the Greek Weather Service because of this storm. It's been named Daniel, by the way. So that is a deep area of low pressure, Storm Daniel, affecting the eastern Mediterranean. Lots of people on holiday in Greece, of course, and we had the wildfires earlier in the summer as well. So it's not been a brilliant summer for them in terms of wild weather. So that's that system. The one out in Iberia continues to kind of hover just off the coast of Portugal, and that is continuing to allow for us high pressure to dominate. It's not sitting right over us, and that is fairly crucial as to why we're seeing the high temperatures. Let's take the rainfall off and just play through the next few days, because that high it's been sitting there in one form or another for a couple of days, and it just stays there all the way through tomorrow, through Wednesday, through Thursday. It's still there, and the low is still sitting down to the southwest. So what that means, with a big area of high pressure here, the winds go around high pressure clockwise, the winds go around low pressure anti-clockwise. So it's all just generating air wafting up from the south. That is why we are so very warm at the moment. That's why we are seeing this heat wave across the UK currently, and why it is likely to last throughout this week and even into the weekend. We are seeing the heat continue to build, probably peaking Wednesday or Thursday, but the high pressure, the low pressure don't really shift too far. Fast forward to Friday, same setup, high here, low here. Fast forward to Saturday, not a great deal of change. The highs slunk away maybe a little bit, but the low's still down here. But notice there is some cooler air approaching, and that is maybe a sign of a change. If we fast forward right to the end of the sequence, towards Sunday, there is a cold front just edging its way southwards. But ahead of that, much of the UK is going to stay very warm for the rest of this week. Temperatures are going to be well above the average for the time of year. Let's take a look at some of those temperatures. For example, the London area getting up over 30 degrees Celsius, dipping off a little bit perhaps as we go through towards the weekend, the early part of next week, but there's quite a bit of uncertainty about that. Same goes for Norwich. Again, temperatures may start to dip off towards the end of the series. But it's not just the maximum temperatures. In fact, we'll put those on a map, shall we? That might be an easier way of looking at it. If we put the temperatures on a map. So Wednesday, easily 30, 31, maybe 32 in the London area, but across this zone, temperatures significantly above average. But even further north, across parts of Scotland, 25, 26 degrees Celsius is likely in some spots, and along the Moray Firth there, again, likely to be a warm spot, temperatures over 25 degrees Celsius perhaps. So that's Wednesday. Thursday, again, similar numbers. Peaking in the south, 31, maybe a 32 degrees Celsius, one or two locations. It's usually going to be in this zone, so north of London, across parts of the East Midlands towards Cambridgeshire. That is probably going to be the hot spot, 31, 32, maybe even a 33 degrees Celsius. But it's not just about the daytime temperatures. The nights are going to be very warm as well. Last night was the warmest night of the year. 20.5 degrees Celsius at Plymouth, not far away from where we're recording this in Devon, at the other end of Devon in Exeter. But Plymouth last night didn't drop below 20 degrees Celsius. These temperatures are going to be high for the next few nights. In the south in particular, we're looking at temperatures easily in the mid to high teens, and some locations won't drop again below 20 degrees Celsius for the next few nights. Thursday night, probably the peak of the warmth across the southern area. Again, 20, 21 degrees Celsius. That's important for a couple of reasons. Obviously, warm, humid nights, hard to sleep, has health implications, also potentially record-breaking. Now, 20 degrees is classed as a tropical night. So if temperatures don't drop below 20 Celsius, that's classed as a tropical night. We had that last night in Plymouth, which was the warmest night of the year so far. Likely to have it overnight tonight. Some locations likely to stay above 20. And again, the following night, 3 consecutive tropical nights. That's pretty rare at any time of year, but very, very rare in September. Been looking back through the records, can't see an example of consecutive tropical nights in September. The last time he had it was during the exceptional heat wave of July last year. Then we did have consecutive heat wave, but that was July, so it's very rare to see this in September. I mentioned last night 20.5 Celsius at Plymouth. At the same time, Braemar in Scotland was down to 1.4 Celsius. It was a huge 19-degree range first thing this morning between the far southwest and the far northeast of the country. And again, across parts of Scotland, temperatures may, through some sheltered glens, dip down to single figures. But most urban areas are staying in the teens. And the probably peak of the nighttime temperatures Thursday morning, perhaps Friday morning as well, where again tropical nights are possible. So I've talked about the consecutive nights over 20 degrees, tropical nights, but consecutive days over 30 Celsius, that is likely to push some records through the rest of this week. We were over 30 Celsius yesterday, and we're likely to be over 30 Celsius across parts of the south into the weekend. Sunday, very likely. Monday's also possible. We'll talk about the change perhaps into next week in just a moment. But Sunday is also possible. So we could easily see 5, 6, maybe even 7 days over 30 Celsius consecutively. And that is unheard of in September. The current consecutive record number of days for over 30 Celsius is 5. That was set back in 1911. We've had 4 consecutive September days over 30 Celsius twice, 1929 and 1898, and it's happened 3 times over 3 more recent years. But yeah, we're likely to beat that because we're going to get at least 5. I'd have thought there's a good chance of 6, 7, or maybe even 8, depending on when this heat finally does disappear. So although we're not likely to beat the all-time September temperature record, which is 35.6 Celsius, we're unlikely to beat that, but we are going to beat the number of consecutive days over 30 Celsius, or there is at least a very good chance. The all-time nighttime temperature September record is 21.7, and there is a good chance that somewhere could beat that in the coming nights as well. So lots of stats there, and once all this is over, we'll probably do an attribution study and look at all the data and see how rare this hot spell has been and how much climate change has impacted it. So yeah, plenty going on with the temperatures this week. It is staying hot and humid even into the weekend. But will it stay dry and sunny everywhere? That's the next big and crucial question. Let's take a look at what's going on in the forecast and what's going on high up in the atmosphere. We've got the jet stream digging down here. We've got this omega block. Now that is kind of breaking down because the jet stream is continuing further north and it's kind of cutting off these two areas of low pressure. But as we've seen, the high stays here and the low stays here. But what we will see is just a few elements digging in around the bottom of this low of the jet stream, just pushing northwards. And that is going to introduce the potential for some showers as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday. Just that bit of extra oomph from the jet stream. It's called upper forcing. It's where what's going on high up in the atmosphere is just generating a little bit of activity lower down. And that may spark a scattering of heavy showers as we go through Wednesday night and into Thursday. Let's fast forward on the rainfall chart. So this is Thursday morning. You can see we've got a scattering now of showers across parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, perhaps into parts of Wales and the southwest. They are pretty well scattered, and that's going to change. So don't rely too much on the detail of this, but we could see, because of what's going on high up in the atmosphere, some thundery showers coming in on Wednesday night and Thursday morning. Now, because they're being created by what's going on high up in the atmosphere, they're going to have a high base. And that is crucial because it means a lot of the rain that they generate won't actually reach the ground. But they're still going to be pretty active storms and could generate quite a lot of electrical activity, quite a lot of lightning. So the storms that we see Wednesday night and Thursday will be very isolated. They may not generate much in the way of rainfall, but they may well spark quite a few flashes of lightning. You could hear rumbles of thunder. So that's the thunderstorms that are possible on Wednesday night and Thursday. Again, I must stress, most places won't see them. Most places will just stay fine with hot, hazy sunshine through this week. Subtle change as we go into Friday. If we look again at what's going on high up in the atmosphere, by the time we get to Friday, yeah, that'll do. We've lost that upper forcing, so there's not a lot going on. There's bits and pieces, but it's not as significant. What's going on now, instead of what's going on high up in the atmosphere, we need to look at what's going down lower in the atmosphere. Notice the isobars have spaced right out across the UK. So that means, let's take the jet stream off, the winds at the surface level winds are pretty light. We've still got the heat and the humidity in place. We've got light winds. So that means what's more likely to happen is that storms are created from below. So instead of on Wednesday night where the storms are created by what's going on high up in the atmosphere, later this week they may start to be created by what's going on at low levels. Because the winds are light, we're going to see things like sea breezes and where the mountains are have an impact, and the way that the land lies, the orography, and that will generate local winds that bump up against each other, and we call that convergence. And when we get convergence, when winds are at low levels are hitting together like that, they can't go down because that's the ground. The only way they can go is up, and that generates thunderstorms from low level. So we call that a low-level convection, and that can generate big storms. And because they're starting lower, then the rain is more likely to reach the ground. So by the time we get to Friday and Saturday, we could start to see more of these thunderstorms that do drop a lot of rain. They're still going to be pretty isolated, but that is one source of thunderstorms. Another one is actually from elevated heat sources, as we call them here in the Met Office, basically where the land rises up, so hills and mountains, the air on top of those gets hot. But because we're a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, that can generate those thunderstorms a little easier. So you get elevated heat sources or convergence generating storms on Friday and Saturday. Now, I must stress again, they are still going to be pretty isolated. They're not going to be everywhere, but we will see maybe some of them developing as we go through Friday and into Saturday. As you can see there, that's just an indication of where we might see them, but they're pretty isolated, pretty hit and miss. By the time we get to Sunday, let's fast forward to Sunday, take the rain off that. By the time we get to Sunday, let's have a wider view. Now what we're seeing is the lows a little further away, the highs a little further away, and what's going on further north is starting to have an impact. And we're starting to see more of the winds coming in from the west. Over in the west, there's a lot of water. It's called the Atlantic, and that is injecting more moisture. So by the time we get to Sunday, the heat is still in place, but that extra bit of moisture coming in is more likely to generate wider spread thundery showers. So we're looking at 3 different mechanisms really for creating thunderstorms over the next few days. Wednesday night to Thursday, very isolated, higher in the sky, more likely to be lightning that's the biggest issue. By the time we get to Friday and Saturday, it's more likely to be low-level thunderstorms, so they could drop a lot of heavy rain, but they're still pretty isolated because there's not a lot generating them, not as much moisture around. By the time we get to Sunday, we're introducing more moisture, so we'll see, I think, more widespread, heavy, thundery showers breaking out. Too early to say exactly where and exactly when, so keep up to date with the forecast. And again, many places won't see these thunderstorms even on Sunday, so staying dry, and as we've seen, very warm and very humid, both by day and by night. However, notice more of a significant change by this stage. I've talked about the high and the low disappearing. Here's a cold front coming in, and this is likely to change the weather and change the feel of things at some point between Sunday and Wednesday next week. But that question mark about exactly when. So this is the Met Office model, obviously showing that cooler air up to the northwest, trying to push in, but not really succeeding by Sunday. So still very warm on Sunday, but looking at one computer model isn't always that useful. What we tend to do is run the computer models many times, and that can give us an indication of a more probabilistic view of when a certain event is going to happen. Now, this is the European model. We call it a spaghetti plot for obvious reasons. Each of these red and blue lines is where each of the different runs of the computer model thinks the cold front is going to be by the time we get to Sunday. And you can see, maybe you can't see it very well there, but let's just zoom in a little bit more. So the UK is under here, just about make out the south coast of England there. There's France, that's the south coast. So you can see that most of those weather fronts are across the northwestern half of the UK. So that's a reasonably consistent signal there that that front is going to push in, but it's going to be somewhere to the northwest on Sunday. By the time we get to Monday, then this isn't me drawing with my crayons going crazy. The UK is under there somewhere. So by the time we get to Monday, there is much more spread. There is much more uncertainty, because it could be that the front has cleared Kent, but it could also be that the front is still out across northwest Scotland. And that's the big question mark as we go into next week, the timing of the cooler, fresher air. Now, pretty much all the computer models have fresher air in by the middle of next week, but it's that question mark. It could arrive certainly in the northwest on Sunday. It may not get to the southeast until perhaps Wednesday. So this hot spell may well continue into the early part of next week, but it is likely to have finished by midweek next week. This is the meteogram. So again, when you run those computer models many times, you get more of an idea of what the temperature is going to be. You don't just get one answer, you get a spread, you get a range, and that's represented here by the 4 capital cities. And this is the Cardiff one. I want to show you this because quite a strong signal that the temperature is going to be well above average for the next few days, but then it does drop off as we go into next week. A few spikes there, still suggesting the heat could keep on, but for most the most likely scenario is that we will see that heat dropping. Same goes for London as well. But actually I want to show you Cardiff's minima as well, because the minima here are going to be above the average maximum. So the average maximum is that red line there, which in Cardiff is, what, 18, 19 degrees. So those minimum temperatures of 19, 20 Celsius are above the average maximum temperatures for this time of year. So it is going to be a very warm spell. Question marks about how long the hot spell will last. And if you want more on that, if you want to know more details, then the 10-day trend will be recorded tomorrow. It's not going to be me, it's not going to be Aidan, it's going to be Alex Burkill recording the 10-day trend tomorrow. So again, another reason to hit subscribe, and then you won't miss that tomorrow, because he'll have more details about when this hot spell is going to come to an end. Just want to show you one more thing, which is of course the heat wave threshold. We've talked about this before. What constitutes a heat wave? Well, you've got to reach this threshold temperature for 3 days in a row. We're easily reaching that across a large part of England and Wales. It's 28 degrees in and around the southeast, ranging up to 25 across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England. So that's the threshold, and we're likely to reach that threshold over the 3 days. We've already reached it across large parts of the country over the last few days, but for the 3-day spell, Thursday to Saturday, you can see a pretty extensive heat wave across England and Wales, lasting into Sunday as well. By the time we get to Monday, well, question marks about when that cooler air will be spreading in. Obviously, there'll be more cloud spreading in as well, so that may suppress the temperatures. But the hot spell of weather and the heat wave conditions likely to last, certainly across a good part of England and Wales, into the weekend. Don't quite reach the criteria for 3 days in a row across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. We will hit those temperatures, certainly across Scotland. The high is going to be 25, 26, but it's not necessarily going to get 3 days in a row. So that's why it wouldn't be classed as a heat wave there. Okay. That's about it from me. Oh, no, well, now there's one more thing. The dust storm. Haven't talked about the dust storm. This is a satellite image. We talked about that low that brought the thundery showers across Spain. Here's an image of that yesterday, so Monday afternoon. That swirl of cloud you can see quite clearly, but this kind of browny smudge is dust that's been drawn up as part of this low pressure. You can actually see the dust from space. Just thought this was pretty impressive, the view from NASA there. So thank you to them for this gorgeous satellite picture. This was yesterday. That whole dust has moved further north since this was taken, and actually across parts of Northern Ireland. And the reason I'm showing it because it may create some atmospheric sunsets on Tuesday evening. It doesn't necessarily make the sky more colourful, more pinky or purpley, but it intensifies the oranginess or the redness of the sun. It didn't see too much from this last night, and our chief meteorologist thinks partly because the dust is simply too thick to be seen through. It's got quite a big area of dust there, so just wanted to show you that before we went as well. Okay, that is pretty much it from me for now. Please do hit subscribe, and if you've enjoyed this, hit the like button as well. Keep the comments coming as well. As I said, we do read them and we do love them. Please, speaking of comments, please do watch the 10-day trend with Alex tomorrow, Alex Burkill, and be kind to him. And he will also be doing the deep dive this time next week as well. So exciting times. I know that our YouTube viewers are always very kind and considerate, so please give him some love, show him some love, and please share the love with this broadcast as well, with this deep dive. Let everyone know that we do this and we do appreciate all of your interactions. So thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.